At any moment now, closing arguments will begin in the murder trial for the doomsday mom, Lori Vallow. She is charged with first-degree murders in the death of her children, JJ and Tylee, who were found buried in shallow graves in June of 2020, and their bodies discovered on her husband, Chad Daybell's property. While police say her children were buried in the ground, the newlyweds, Lori and Chad, were hanging out at a pool in Hawaii. And this is new video that was just released from January of 2020. Police in this video are serving her a subpoena regarding her missing children. They were still missing at that point. And you can see Vallow lounging in the pool in a bikini. Next to her is her husband, Chad Daybell. Police say the children were killed in September of 2019. Again, this was January. The children's bodies were not found until June of this year. I want to bring in Joshua Ritter now, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor, host of the True Crime Daily Sidebar podcast. This video, just to me, seems like another damning piece of circumstantial evidence for the defense. What's your read?
Absolutely. I mean, as I was watching that right now, it's chilling to think that as that's being recorded, as they're sitting there relaxing, lounging, having a couple of drinks, her children are missing, and she likely knows that they've been murdered and probably took part in it. It's really very disturbing. I think just on a emotional level, the jurors will react to that, putting aside its evidentiary value of her consciousness of guilt and understanding that her children were no longer alive at that time. Just from a purely emotional level, I think jurors will react to that.
Were you surprised at all, Joshua, that the defense rested its case, did not call any witnesses in the final hours?
I'm surprised given the magnitude of the case, given how serious it is, given how much evidence the prosecution has put on. But if you were watching closely, it looked like it was all shaping out to be that kind of a defense case. They had not really set up much in cross-examination that was kind of a preview of witnesses that they might have been calling later. Sometimes we see that where they're trying to impeach a witness with statements that we know that they might have through another witness that they're going to call at a later time, but we never saw anything like that. So it's surprising because you would have expected some sort of a case, but not if you had been following. It seems as though it's part of the way that the case played out for them.
Does that indicate to you that they're confident in the case that they have, or that prosecutors did not adequately lay out enough evidence for this jury to convict?
I think the prosecution did lay out enough evidence. I think what it speaks more than anything is that the defense likely made a strategic decision that sometimes putting on a very weak affirmative defense is worse than putting on no defense at all. I think what we're going to see here in closing arguments is one of two things, or perhaps both. One, they're going to point towards the defense side of the table and talk about an open chair defense, saying there's somebody missing from this courtroom that we know was likely involved, and that's Chad Daybell. Where is he? He's really the one that's culpable for all of this. And the other thing they might do is what's called a reasonable doubt defense, and just simply say, listen, the burden has always remained upon the prosecution, and they simply did not meet that burden. I do not know how convincing either one of those arguments will be, though, given what the prosecution's case has been.
At the center of this case, we refer to Lori Vallow often as the doomsday mom because she believed her children were dark spirits. They were zombies. The prosecution laid that out in their case to really point out for the jury the mental competency of her motive in this case. I want to play for people at home a portion of a discussion between Brian Enton, our correspondent. He spoke with Anna Lebaron. She's the daughter of a Mormon cult leader, Everil Lebaron, and he asked her if she thinks Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell still believe all this doomsday stuff about the zombies and the dark spirits and the end of times, and here's what she had to say about that.
I do believe they still believe it. And in my mind, like my father, even, and other cult members of my father's that stood trial for things, for killing people that they had killed, believed that they would not have to answer to the law for what they had done. They believed that they would be, rescued from that.
Joshua, we've heard time and time again that Lori Vallow believes she could talk her way out of anything. By listening to that, do you believe, as you've listened to so much evidence and testimony, that Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell believe they're above the law, that they do believe these things that have been laid out?
Absolutely. I mean, just look at the way that video that we showed of them beside the pool. Those are people who believe they're above the law. They believe that they're not accountable to anyone except in their fringe religious beliefs, perhaps to God. But I think you put the nail on the head when you talked about motive. And that's really what all of this evidence goes towards. Because
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.